go ahead, do it. But that's what I got. That's what I got. So that's how I first met Deb and the master who she channels, Sen Loo Chow. But I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about her. She is my mentor. She is a spiritual teacher, and I consider her a friend. I've been doing work with her for a little bit more over a year, for mentorship for 30 minutes a month through numerology. She has done a chart for me many, many moons ago. And when I popped my hands on fire, she came into my life again and said, how about if I do your numbers now? And so ever since then, and so it's probably been almost 3 years, I've been doing a 30-minute a month mentorship with her as she charts my numbers and tells me what to work on and work with. She is a mission to come on from the beautiful state of Colorado. She's going to help us understand a little bit about the numbers of this coming next year that we are having, as well as the rest of this year. I personally had a meeting with her this morning as one of my teachings with her, and what she told me is that, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, is that this offers a doorway. This pandemic offers a doorway to be our authentic selves and not to police ourselves anymore with the no's or yeses. And I love those words of not policing ourselves and deciding how many yeses and how many no's we want to do as we go forth into this time. I guess I don't have anything. She also talks about, for any of you who went through the leadership program, all the work that we did with Warrior Healer work. She's the one who wrote that book that you worked with and worked on when you went through that program. And so every month she kind of helps me understand the, because I told her today it's interesting how many times we need some help understanding the warrior healer energy and what to do with that, And she'll always tell me, well, you're a dominant warrior this month and you need to bring up your healing energy, or you're a dominant healing energy this month and you need to bring your warrior energy to take care of yourself. So she has been really a great, Renita would say, a great contributor to my life. Renita always says is, why would you be in any relationship really if it wasn't a contributor to your life? And I kind of liked that. I really liked that word as well. And so I try to be a contributor to everybody else's life, as well as the people who come into my life and contribute to my life. The other exciting thing, when we are on with sweet Deb. Deb, is that you?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, I was just introducing you. How are you, my dear?
I'm good.
I was just telling him I just had a teaching from you, and that I've been doing, we must have been doing mentorship with each other now it was after my hands caught on fire, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I have to look back. I don't know, time becomes a blur.
Yeah. So I think it's
been a
been
couple years anyway, I think.
At least 3 years. It's been 3 years since I popped my hands on fire and went through my initiation. I went out.
Fire.
Yes. So, and I explained to them a little bit about how you've been working with Sen Loo Chow, and he's been teaching you and you've been teaching through him. And I was telling them that when I first met you, it was on the floor of Mel Williams' house, and asked, well, Sen Loo Chow, oh, do you think I should start a spiritual center? And I expected some great big long paragraph message. Sen Loo Chow says, yeah, if you wanna, go ahead. So I did. So Sen Loo Chow is part of my energy field that helped me become the woman that I am and helped me start the center. So everyone, this is my friend, my mentor, my peer, my helper, Miss Deb Schubert, who's calling in from Colorado and knows a lot about numerology. And I was telling them, Deb, that you're the woman who wrote the book that a lot of the leaderships went through of warrior and healer. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So
Okay.
first, let's describe, or have you describe a little bit about warrior healer energy and how it's important in our lives.
Okay. Well, everything to me is energy. We all talk about energy. We've been working with energy. It was really important for me to understand how to use it in my life, or let's say how to balance it out, and what I was working with. So when I look back, I'd already started working with Sen Loo Chow, and he'd been talking to me a lot about how I needed to raise my warrior energy, being a dominating healer. And so when I found numerology, or it found me, one way or the other, I started to see how important it was to understand that each number in the chart was either healer or warrior energy. And when I looked at the balance of mine, I could see why he had been so adamant about me raising my warrior energy. So we understand healer a lot more than warrior, I think. At least I did, being a dominating healer. Healer, to me, had a lot of, I guess, it put me in a place where I felt really responsible about trying to help other people as a healer. But I was totally leaving myself out of there, other than trying to heal in a way that really wasn't working. It just wasn't working for me. I went to mega workshops. I worked with a mentor for years who was really tough on me on this physical plane. And I felt like I was stripping away some things, but I was still suffering greatly. And I can only, of course, I admit that now, I never would have then. That would have totally ruined my persona or my identity as trying to be a teacher healer. You can't really work with people and then start telling them how bad you feel.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I'm alone in that boat where I felt like a fake and tried to cover it up all the time. And I certainly felt as if I did what I could and was on the path that I really wanted to be on. But underneath that, there was a lot of complexity and a lot of confusion. So as I started to understand healer energy, I realized that I was using it too much. Since I had so much healer, I would become overwhelmed with my own feelings. And then my intuition was so strong, I couldn't really separate what was mine from somebody else's. So the healer is the emotional and the intuitive levels. The warrior energy is the physical and the mental levels. So warriors, I've come to understand it, is participation, the joy of actually moving and breathing on this planet. There's a level of commitment and follow through. There's a loyalty to warrior. If they say they're going to show up, they show up. What I found was that I wasn't showing up in my own life. My warrior was low. I mean, I would show up to work with people, of course, but my healer got me there. And then, of course, my warrior did participate. But it was so much just about trying to be there for other people. So for me to raise my warrior meant that I had to really find my own space and honor that, my own experience, and come from within, balance myself within, and then be available to do the work that I really wanted to do. So anyway, I'll stop right there because I could probably go on. But
today about like, don't you, when I said talk to you earlier, I said, Dow, don't you think it's interesting that you're here on 4 o'clock on the 4th? So what does 4 mean when you have 4 like that?
Well, 4 is a physical number. It's warrior energy. So here I am. I've shown up.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
And I'm participating.
Mhm.
And of course, with my healer guiding me, I always tell people it's the balance that we want to get to, because it is a partnership. It's just like marriage. It's a healthy marriage, and the healer must guide the warrior, however, because the healer has the insight, has the intuition. So a 44, if we're doubling the fours, is a very, very strong warrior of great endurance energy. And of course, we're in May, and 5 is also a warrior, and that means change, transformation, shifting. Yeah.
Well, you know, we talked about this epidemic before it was even an epidemic, which is kind of interesting when I look back to the pages of working with you. And so according to numerology, did you kind of, I don't know if the word expected this to come forth during this time of coronavirus? Did you expect this through the numbers to be an enormous year of change and choosing?
Yes, that definitely came up. I just didn't know how we would be presented with that. But this universal year is a 22/4. The 22 is a master number. It's called the master number, the master builder number. And when we're building, we either start from scratch or we have to tear down and renovate and rebuild. Okay, so there's all of this energy about either restoration or scraping away, going to foundation, and getting a stronger foundation to rebuild from. You know, when I first looked at the numbers, I saw that primarily, but the 20 in itself had a lot more significance than I was aware of at that time, because the 20 is about patience and unfolding and allowing. So we can see how that certainly has come about in our lives, having to let go of control and accept the unknown if we can, and have that space to really go within.
Because the other thing that we talked about too, I wish I had all my notes here, I thought I did, is that we talked about this is the time to be more authentic than ever before. And you and I talked a little bit about, which I think for all women, if there's any men as well, but I think for women it seems a little bit harder to monitor our yeses and be authentic with our no's and be okay with our no's. So what do you think that is all, you know, what is this crossroads that we are with our no's and yeses right now?
Oh, well, I think we've been giving many opportunities to clarify and reset priorities, and to, again, reflect on where we want our energy to go. What do we want to do with it? And if we're always really very, very busy, we just seem to get on that wave, and that can be a strong warrior energy of busyness. And of course, healers are pulled along with that as far as wanting to be helpful. But it's just this opportunity to have the space, maybe. You know, before it was always about boundaries. How are you going to reset your boundaries? Here, and I see it as a resetting of our energies, and the courage to be really honest of what are we doing it for. You know, if I say yes, is it unconditional, or does it have conditions to it? So it's getting a little bit down to the nitty-gritty.
Isn't it interesting how we really get more, for me anyways, I think I get more and more authentic as I get older with my no's and yeses. And one of the things, again, I'm a ferocious reader and I sear in statements in my mind. And one of the things when I was listening to Christian Tippett, I think, on Sunday morning, there was an author on there, and she studied the English language. And one of the things she said is that she used to police different attributes of herself. And I thought, that's interesting. So she invited us when I was listening to her, she invited us to take a look at those attributes inside of us that we tend to police because we want to please everybody on the earth at this time. Who would do the policing? The warrior? Or is that just the ego then that polices it?
Oh, that's a good question. Usually the healer is going to be the one that's going to cast the judgments
Okay.
on a lot of things. So that's usually going to be more of the voice of concern or opinion. The warrior energy is really just it's life force, and it's directing our energy. So the healer will often make a great deal of the decisions, but it just, again, depends on how we individually work with our healer and our warrior energy. Warriors have a tendency to do something and then they're done, they check it off and they go on. Healers, because of the emotions and the intuition, which can take us into the past or the future, will use a lot of sometimes ammunition or, as I say, padding our stories about why we should or shouldn't do it. So we can get into a lot of self-analysis through the healer. That's why for me, having an abundance of healer energy, and my chart certainly confirmed that with the abundance of numbers I have that are healer, that my warrior was not helping my healer to be healthy. In other words, if any of the energies dominate, we either become too, what I would say, narcissistic, or we become too concerned about everyone else and we're not even aware that we're present. So you can see that whatever dominates is going to pull us in one direction or the other. I think when you said policing, I just looked at it as observation, being aware.
Well, during this time also, a lot of people are seeing duplicates of numbers like 1111, or a question came in of 444. When a person is noticing, like today when I said, 4 o'clock, and he immediately says, oh, you're kind of looking at the numbers now. And I said, yeah, I don't know anything that they mean, but I do recognize the numbers. So first and foremost, like, what if somebody saw 444 or 1111? What does that mean? And then where do we go to find out what that might mean when we see duplicates of numbers?
Well, I'll just speak to my own experience. Like 11 does come up for me quite often. And I had a lot of things happen on the 11th, on those 11 days. Births, deaths, big transitions. And the number 11 is the master number for inspiration. So I just take that as a level of wanting to be inspired. And it can also be because there's so much energy with that number that if we're not acting on our inspirations, we can get very depressed there, because it's a very, very strong number to work with. So a lot of times it's, am I feeling inspired? Am I paying attention? It just is a little reminders there. So again, depending on the personal chart, then I can be more specific. It's like doing general horoscopes. You can only go so far with it, and then you could have like maybe 50 different interpretations.
Yes, and I think that's why in some ways numerology is misunderstood, because I think that if one sees a 444 or 444 or 1111, it might does it mean something according to the chart?
According to the chart, because a 4 could mean it's warrior energy. It could be that you're procrastinating. You're not using your warrior energy, you're sitting on it. For somebody else, it could be a health thing, because often a 4 will say, what's happening physically? Are you healthy?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I have to always see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think and I love that about you, because when I had you on Blog Talk, I think somebody says, I think many people, because I would get like, all I want to know is what's a 5 mean? Just tell me what a 5 means. Or tell me what a 6 means. Just tell me what a 6 means. And I think through working with you and understanding you and the integral part of you, as you said, well, hey, 6 might not mean for you what a 6 might mean for somebody else.
Yeah, because we're in a world of duality.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different things that a 6 could mean. Could be taking no responsibility or too much responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Too much caretaking, not enough there.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I don't work with single numbers. I work with the full number before I bring it down to the 6, and that has a very, very different energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell Deb or trying to sell what she does, because I just told everybody that at Hope Interfaith Center, we don't sell products, we create space for people to evolve. And so I started specifically working with Deb as I was doing this transitioning of the Hope Interfaith Center to Amy and Janelle, and transitioning really my life to a more balanced life and what that might look like in the future. So that's when I thought, well, I'll give it a shot and, and listen for 30 minutes. And every time I listened, you gave me information that I could work with the rest of the month. And what I had found is working with you, and I think I said this before you came on, and we talked about this, what it does, it just offers a doorway into more of a simplified spiritual life, a doorway into a more simplified spiritual life. And I believe that that's what I needed as I began to transform and began to move away from the outside into the inside a little bit with those numbers. So when we moved into this incarnation with our number chart, then was our path already spoken for in spirit world when we came here and say, this is my birthday, these are my numbers, this is the time I came, where the highway I arrived. So we chose that in the upper worlds to bring that forth into this world. Is that right?
Mm. Yeah, it was all prearranged, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I like to look at the chart as a script. Like we were handed a script, and we live it out perfectly. You know, we do a great job with it. And whenever I do a chart, it's a validation. I always say, does this resonate? Does this validate anything? Because it should. It's not about earth-shaking new things. It should feel like you there. And within that place, then we can have a communication. Then, you know, you can listen and receive rather than wondering if you're going to hear these really weird or strange things about yourself. Because it has to be a heart connection through the numbers. Also, when I do a chart, it's for me about working with your healer warrior energy and offering some guidance and I guess just educating as far as how you can balance your energy. We have all the numbers. All of us have every single number in our chart. We're not devoid of a number. It's just how often they show up that creates more that will use that energy in one of those, you know, in all of those categories. And again, for me, knowing that I had to build my warrior energy was life-saving to me. Yes. It totally shifted everything, because then my healer became healthy. instead of unhealthy and manipulative and needy, and fully, all of my validation was based outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a comfortable way to live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the warrior does bring us back. The warrior is what grounds us. And you and I have talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
We have to be grounded here. We have to feel safe in our bodies, comfortable, and balancing the healer warrior energy helps us to be present. And when we're present, we have massive opportunities for growth instead of just struggling in confusion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talked about this morning about intentions, and I thought that was interesting because whether it was Christine Day, who we had on this, on Blog Talk, I guess, whether it is Jerry and Esther Hicks through Abraham, Rockets of Desire Time, whether it is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and so on and so forth. And then we started talking about that this is time not about what we don't want, but what we do want. To set the intentions right now is really important with this energy that's in here, to set the intentions. You want to talk a little bit about that, how the numbers provide for that?
Right. Well, they always do. This isn't a particularly different time for that. We've just been given more space.
Okay, interesting. Mm-hmm.
Again, space is healer, time is warrior. Okay. So if we're given space, right. Okay. Space is expansion, healer, intuition. Okay.
Okay.
And so we've been given space, and somewhat our time lines have been modified, right? They're not so set. And if we're not comfortable with our healer, with stillness, we'll be fighting this tooth and nail, this more open time. It'll be very, very challenging because, again, we're not going to be able to escape our mind. And so when I talk about intention, it's very much about warrior energy in terms of manifesting. You can call it goal setting or whatever, but manifesting through the warrior is focusing the energy. Mm-hmm. Then adding the feeling to it is healer. So I'd say it's always important to feel what you want to manifest, that it has to have a certain level of feeling or it will just stay on the mental plane, which is warrior. And lots of times we will probably cancel out 90% of what we want if we do not add the feeling level in there, and also start to, I would say, question what is causing our suffering. And of course, this is going to be mind. I call it story mind. You can call it ego. But without, and I found this very true for myself as well as working with others, that until I had enough balance in my chart, so I wasn't going through extreme lows. I never went into manic phases because I'm such a dominating healer. But the depression, if we're just kind of bounce back all the time, it's very difficult to balance our energies. It's what I say, to raise the opposite energy. We're just trying to maintain. So once I built my warrior up enough, so my healer was healthy and I didn't go into such extreme lows, I had much, much more opportunity to start to question why I believe something. And there are many wonderful people on the planet that are speaking about this, about working with the mind, because we're the only ones, each of us have to work with our own minds. Nobody else could do it. And my mind always came in based on the past, which created fear, and then it took me to the future into anxiety. So I found that as I balanced my healer warrior, I could stay more present. And I had more, I guess you can call it power or consciousness or whatever, stability to stay here and not shut down. And do the work that I always wanted to do.
Mhm, mhm. What do the numbers show for the rest of this year?
Well, we're in the 5th month now of 22/4, the master builder number. So we've done a lot of excavation work, let's say, if we're looking at this in terms of a house, so to speak. We've come in and seen that the foundation has been really shaky, maybe unstable, and that it needed to be rebuilt. Something needed to come down. So a demolition phase comes to mind, and we've all been in places.
So that's still going to happen the next 6?
No, we've already gone through that.
Oh, okay,
That's yeah, that's been the major. Yeah. I'm just talking up until this point, what's going on.
Yes, okay. Yep.
I mean, it will to some degree, of course, continue, but the big push of it, because I find most of what happens when a new universal year comes in will generally take place within the first 6 months. There. And then it will start to wane a little bit. Okay. So we've had to take a look at what's gone on, and things have disintegrated a little bit. Things have been shaken up. Then we've come into having to do a little reevaluating, a little recovery of things. Right now, we're kind of in the numbers in a, not a completion, total completion, but there is feeling like there might be a little bit of a finishing or ending this month to some of the worst of it. Okay. The numbers that come up usually demonstrate that we've come out better than expected, that we've gained some experience, that we might feel a little stronger. Okay. And again, this can be on many, many levels. There's certainly people that aren't feeling that, but this is what the numbers offer. How do we take this? It's almost like taking inventory, as you would at the end of the year. We're kind of doing that right now. As we move through May, that will continue. There, of course, are always adjustments, but it's looking more toward, in the sense of humanity, the greater good right now. What can be accomplished, what can be looked at, taken care of. There's going to be more options that come out in June. And we were talking about the yes-no, being able to do that. That will become more apparent in June, because we'll be ready, maybe, to be clear on what we say yes to and what we say no to. Okay. Because everything's a progression there. So we'll see some options. We might feel some courage coming up to do some things that we know we either need to do or it's time to do. Okay. But there will be a little more feelings of ingenuity, willingness to make some changes, and possibly adapt. Right. When we move into July, it's more of a visionary month, so we may need to re-envision. We may need to see, again, what are some possibilities? What have we learned that actually worked better or that we'd like to see continue? But much more free thinking and working with that, we were talking about, the 11 energy of inspiration. Also fine-tuning, attention to details as well. There. August will take us into a little bit more of a feeling month. We can either feel some joy or happiness, or we can be angry. There's kind of that flipping back and forth between that. So it really depends on kind of generating a plan if we need to, but generating life force, excitement, positivity, optimism, whatever you want to call it. But how are we going to feel excited about our life, our experience, no matter what's going on out in the world? In September, we get into more of an application month, actually applying. If there's any things that have come up that you really know that you need a structure for, it's the same as with a daily practice or a recovery plan. What are we going to put in motion that's going to feel more stable, that's going to support us? So very strong warrior energy month right there in September. A lot of activation of that, okay? Actually taking the steps. October is going to be more of an experiencing month, communicating, going out, just finding other ways that we're either going to be supported through information. It's kind of more of a social network time. Is this working? Is this not working? Internal communication, whatever we need to do to reinforce or open those lines there, because it's a month where we're trying things on and seeing how they work. So it could be changeable. Nothing is really fixed yet. So there'll be glitches, but some things will work. Pretty much the norm in some ways. November, we become much more, I would say, voice-centered in the speaking out. It may be choosing ideology camps, whatever, as a lot of things continue to play out. Since it's a strong month, it's a healer month, but it's about fairness and justice. Again, it's going to be a more vocal month in many ways, not only maybe for us speaking or finding our voice or speaking whatever we need to, or again, balancing our healer warrior, because again, that's all about the balance. So we either ride the flow or we find we're isolated in some way. So feeling separate or not. Again, on many levels. December is, it's more of a reflection month than anything, although we get into so many of the holiday things, a lot more deeper insight. It could be, again, a very deep month, feeling-wise for people, either wanting to retreat more or, again, just see what works for them. Okay, if we talk about the spiritual aspects, connection and so forth, do we feel like we feel better about ourselves or not? Some very very personal questions about the self in December. So a little bit of the general flow.
Most of the people who've been working with me, they've always heard me do the reflection part of the Hopi Elder, and this is just kind of a condensed version, because I sat with that Hopi Elder a long time ago, and he always says, refer back to the Hopi Elder information, refer back to the Hopi Elder information. And of course, at that time, they kept on saying to me the 11th hour, and we've all read that about the 11th hour, and now they say it's the 12th hour, but this is how they say to kind of prepare, and I don't know if it matches numerology, but in my last small teaching, I asked people to do a SWOT, which was, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, look at the opportunities, and look at the threats. What are the threats to those opportunities of raising your consciousness or moving? And so if you want to refer to the last teaching that I did, is that I've asked everybody that this would be a great time to do a SWOT analysis. But the teachings from the Hopi elders was You've been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. I want you to tell them it is the 12th hour now. And you must go back and tell the people that this is to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relationship? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth and live your spiritual truths. Create your beloved communities. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. And do not look outside yourself for the leaders. You are the ones you have been waiting for. And I like that because you also talked, Deb, about, that statement, if you do not go within, you will go without. And I think that this is, and again, and that's what the numerology charting has done for me, is to be reflective of, because when you say the numbers give you an opportunity, so that the numbers represent energy that's coming into the planet. When you say the numbers, so do the numbers on those months or in this year or in a personal chart, does that mean that there's an energy with those numbers that are assisting us to do that work?
Well, there's energy that emanates from the planet. We have our own energy field. So I'm just really interpreting, again, if it's more healer or warrior, how that will affect us. But everything, we're connected energetically to everything here. So the numbers I said are like tuning forks. And when it starts to resonate and vibrate like a rattle, and it's doing something. It's speaking to us internally, and we respond to that, whether we know it or not. We're responding to the energy, and so that's why at certain times in our charts we run 9-year cycles, and I will often work with people in either a 1, 5, or a 9 personal year, whether they know it or not. Once I do their chart. Because the 1 is new beginnings, the 9 is completion, the 5 is change. So there's usually going to be things that are more up during those years that will be speaking to them. And of course, change is what we will react to the most there.
Yeah.
Or the aspect of losing something, right? So it's hard to find the words at times. I don't know if I answered your question, but every day the energy is waxing or waning like the moon, right? Numbers. And if there's a convergence of numbers, talk about converging, then the energy is stronger, feels more intense. Again, it's a guide. It's a way to validate that what you're feeling or what you're getting, you would be getting, because your chart is speaking, and I'm just the messenger for that.
When I was going to purchase the Hope Interfaith Center, I remember telling you, well, it's 114 Pole Road. You go, oh, 114, that's a good number. So, and you said this is the year to start and be successful and things like that. So if I would have called you and said, well, the number is 666, I mean, they say that's psychedelic. I don't believe that, I don't think. But if I would have said, well, Deb, I'm thinking of, like, if my husband and I are moving to a condo and the number is 666, and if it was kind of a questioning number and not perhaps a good number, would you have said, I just want you to be aware? Would you have said that?
I would have given you the range of the duality, the possibilities.
Okay.
Because I never know how you're going to work with it once you're conscious of it.
That's true. That's interesting. So when people go, like, lots of times, do people ever call you up and I'm going to go in for surgery and this is the date? Should I go with it or not? I mean, I know a lot of people, and I don't want you to take that power, but I do believe there's something with the energy of the numbers that are, that I will either resonate with it or not. And
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
And I
when
kind of,
and when you see a number over and over and over and over and over again, there's got to be something that's resonating with you with those numbers that's telling you to go for it.
yeah, there's something somewhere in your being that's saying, pay attention. This number's speaking to you in some way. And so you're going to go, it's like seeing your favorite bird. You're going to go, it's going to seem like it just shows up.
Yes.
But it's there for a reason.
Yes.
And we don't have to make a big deal out of it. It doesn't have to be anything earth-shaking. It's just, okay, pay attention.
Yes. Yeah. So when did you start working with Sen Loo Chow? And is Sen Loo Chow giving you any information about this time here upon the planet, since he's ancient? But my kids call me ancient as well, but grandchildren do.
Well, the thing that he's primarily said is that it's a cleansing time.
It's a what?
Cleansing.
Cleansing, okay.
And those come periodically, and that the earth has its own chart.
Yeah.
And it's that's all part of it.
Because states and countries also have their, like United States has a chart as well, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess I've never actually done a chart for a country.
That would be interesting to do a chart for the United States of America and see, what, because I was told, I don't think she was a numerologist, but I was told that the United States was born on a certain ray, and that it had to work through a lot of ego stuff in order to go into transcendence and get into a higher level of consciousness, because it's a very young country.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going through now.
Yeah, the only thing with Sen Loo Chow has talked to me about is that in terms of the chakra points of the earth, that the United States is more of the throat chakra of the earth.
Oh, really? Interesting.
United Kingdom is the crown. Let me see if I can remember. Australia is the third eye, or the sixth center. Africa is the first chakra. Let's see, Latin America, or more like Peru, Central America would be the second chakra. Solar plexus is the Middle East. And Tibet, China, these parts of what used to be China, that whole area is the heart chakra.
Tibet or Nepal, or you said Tibet or Nepal, around that
Tibet,
area?
Nepal, heart chakra.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the United States is the throat chakra. So what do you think that means? I'll reflect on it later. Just tell me what you think it means. Christina Rose would always say, stop asking me all those questions. But I'll reflect on it later. I promise you, teacher. But what do you think that the throat chakra of the United States of America means?
Well, I think in just the speaking out and I don't know, communication.
Okay.
Being the central motherboard. I don't know. Being a big center for that level of being of writing, speaking. We have a lot of freedom here to do that. Maybe a lot more than most countries do. So
do you think we're going to have a new say in November? Not going to get political.
I couldn't call it at the beginning of the year, and I'm not going to call it now.
Okay.
I will say that
we'll use our throat chakras and vote.
That's right. Yes. Right, use the voice.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would like to see some restructuring. I would definitely like to see some rebuilding in many ways. And I guess with the planet working on all of this, the planet would also like to see some changes. So however we can work on the environmental level and with the animal kingdom, all of that would be very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's certainly, I mean, we're being talked to now, and and I think that using our throat chakras, especially as women right now, and that's usually the area that I've policed all my life. Don't say this, don't say that. They might think you're weird, all of that stuff. So, so that's very interesting. That's very interesting with the throat chakra.
Yeah. Well, I've also been very clear with people that it's also about our energy. It's not always going to be about what we say or what we do on the outside. It's the kind of energy that we hold within that's going to ripple out.
Uh-huh.
So there's many ways that we can be effective participants here. Yeah, many options that way. But if we're not in conflict within ourselves, we'll make a very clear decision
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
on anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is true that the energy within is going to come out of us. Again, going back to Christy Tippett or whatever her name was, because she was linguistic, and she said it's every word that we say is like a sonic boom out into the universe, and it lands, and you have to be careful of how it lands and where it lands, and just remember that there's a sonic energy. And I was laying in bed with Paul listening to them speak. This linguistic person is saying you have to be very careful because there's a sonar radar energy that comes out through our voice, and how we say it is watching it where it lands. And so that's why I thought it was really interesting with the throat chakra, because all this week I've been hearing things and thinking about things and being instructed about the throat chakra right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting close to the end. Does anybody have any burning questions you would like to ask Deb?
Me.
Yes, Miss Janelle.
I have like 40 questions, but I'll go with one.
Oh my, 40. What does the 4 stand for?
Oh, there's the 4 again. That's interesting.
That's the 4.
I love it.
Multiplied by 10.
I love that.
Interesting.
Okay, so myself and a lot of others are trying to bring babies into the world right now, and are having a lot of difficulty, whether it's not being able to get pregnant or miscarriage or anything. I don't know, like, would the numbers help us bring a baby into the world somehow, or can you give any guidance on that, or what do you think?
Sometimes I can see that in a chart, and sometimes I can't. There are no for sure's. And it's the same with love relationships. I get so many questions about that. If it's meant to show up in your chart, I will tell you about it. If I don't see it, I'm not meant to say anything there. But yeah, I have been able to, I guess, give some encouragement to a few people who have really wanted to conceive. So that's all I can tell you.
Okay.
There. I can do my best to see how numbers converge, and I always say I talk in probability. This looks very probable. This could go either way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we close, Deb, do you have any last wisdom words from Sen Loo Chow or from you? Sen Loo Chow will probably say, show up or something. The end. Cutting off. So any last words that you'd like to give this crowded screen and information to? We've got a lot listening for you today.
Well, I guess what he's nudging me to talk about is the teacher card for today, since he was very influential he gave me all my information on the cards. And today is Celestial Ladder, and it's about the simple pleasures. You know, we think we have to keep climbing up. We have to keep reaching for things, but it's really staying grounded and appreciating the simple things in life that are so beautiful and uncomplicated. And that really helps us to just be very, very present and appreciative.
Mm.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Because I think I showed a lot of people that, I don't know what we were working on one month, but, and I was sitting outside having my teaching from you, and, you know, always feeling like I have to do. You know, obviously I don't do a lot about that. And then what you did is you sent me a picture of I don't know if you remember that, you sent me a picture of a cactus.
Oh yeah.
And then you sent me a picture of the cactus with one bloom on it. And then you sent me a picture with that bloom that fell off. And then you wrote, and the cactus doesn't care. You know, that was the cactus's job. And the cactus doesn't care. And I loved that teaching. I mean, that was enough to contribute to my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because before you came on, you know, one of the things another peer friend of mine always talked about is that why have anybody really that doesn't really contribute to your life and change the contour. But just that one teaching alone, and I was sitting outside on her lawn chair, actually, on Bernita's lawn chair, and then you sending me this after the teaching, and I just thought, like, and the cactus doesn't care. The cactus doesn't care. And I found that really helpful as the doer. So I appreciate that. And you have definitely contributed to my life. I'm much more calmer and nicer to myself because of you. Nicer of myself because of you. So I appreciate you.
Oh, well, I could say the same about you.
Oh, thank you.
We're all contributors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what we will do is we will put Deb's information up on our website for anybody who is interested in getting a chart. You have to have a birth chart done first, and then she'll work with your numbers for that. So we'll put that up for you, Deb, and for anybody else who needs or want information for her. On Thursday, last Thursday, we had a speaker from South Africa, and I didn't get to play the game. You nailed it. I know, I'm goofy. I really want to play that game with you guys. So if you're looking for some fun and laughter and high frequency vibration, tune in on Thursday when I will have 20 very interesting questions called You Nailed It. So hope you join us then. And also next Monday, correct me if I'm right, Amy, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Mark Anthony is our speaker, who is a psychic lawyer from Florida. And he's very interesting man. So he will be our speaker next Monday. Because one of the things I think is really interesting is like hearing the voices of the coronavirus people who left the planet right now, and where they're sitting at this time. So once again, Deb, I thank you. I thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. You have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Deb.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.